All right, let's go. There was two tzaddikim. They're talking together. They had met at this kretschmer, hotels in those days. The famous tzaddik, the Oyev Yisrael of Apta, Naftali of Ravshitz. They met together, and one of them said to the other, "What do you think about the joke of Mincha before Yom Kippur? What do you think about the pre-Mincha joke? The Mincha joke, the Mincha that was said before Yom Kippur, wasn't that a great joke?" And others talk like, "Yeah, that was fantastic." And they start laughing together. And their Gabbai is wondering, what are these guys talking about? The most serious prayer the whole year, the most serious mincha, is a mincha that's said before Yom Kippur. No one's joking then. Everyone's in shul, everyone's concentrating, everyone's praying for the new year. And these guys are talking about some joke, and they're laughing about it. What was the joke? So they explain like this. That year, unfortunately, a lot of women died in childbirth. So a lot of prayers were said that year, between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, that this year, as a Kohen Gadol would pray in the Holy of Holies in Yom Kippur, that Shalesevid Isha Privitna, that a woman should not die in childbirth, and that a woman shouldn't miscarry. So that's what everyone was praying for. But Naftali of Ravshitz and the Tzaddik of Apta said our prayers didn't really make such an impact. We weren't getting through. It wasn't working. We were praying and praying, but it wasn't going through. But then there was this simple villager, this guy who didn't know how to pray too much. He didn't pray every day, but it's before Yom Kippur he was praying. And he got up to the bracha of Baruch Aleinu. Baruch Aleinu, he read the words wrong. Instead of saying Mevarech Hashanim, God blesses the years, he read the words Mevarech Hanashim, God blesses the women. Uvarech Nashasenu Kanash Matevis of Bracha, bless our women, like the women, like the good women for blessing. And he said that he thought that they must have put this in here because of what's going on, and he's pouring his heart out to Hashem. Hashem should bless the women. And these tzaddikim said that his prayer made an impact, changed everything in heaven. Some guys in our shul sometimes make mistakes in davening. I don't like correcting them because maybe they're onto something. Like this Jew, for a while he was saying in Shemon Esrei, Goyim al chasidim toivim. Instead of saying God gives us good kindness, he would say Goyim al chasidim. Hashem gives us good chasidim. So it worked, Baruch Hashem. We got Rabbi Yoel back with us. Baruch Hashem. Hashem Goyim al chasidim toivim. Hashem gives us good chasidim. So the point is that a Jew says a daven, a Jew says a prayer, and it has an impact. It has an impact. Not always does a person say the right nusach and the right words, and but it still, he says it's prayer to Hashem from his heart. It does something. One of the most unusual prayers that we're saying now, one of the longest. We have many unusual prayers that we say once a year, twice a year, a few days a year. The prayers we say on various holidays. But we're saying now a prayer that's unusual. It's not something we say every day, and it extends for the longest period of time. It goes on for 7 weeks. The prayer of counting the Omer. And it's a very unusual thing, this Omer thing. They have, Baruch Hashem, all these kinds of apps that will remind you, if you forgot to count the Omer, it will freeze your phone, you won't be able to do anything, you won't be sending text messages until you count the Omer. And everyone's paying attention to this Omer, and everyone's always talking about it. What day was yesterday? What did I count it? I didn't count it. I did count it. I counted it this morning. I forgot to count last night. And everyone's like very, very in tune with this mitzvah. And the question is, what are we doing? Even on the most simple base pshat level, on the most simple way of looking at the story of the Omer, doesn't make any sense. What are we counting? What are we trying to do? We want to count. Okay, so tonight we just counted the 20th day of the Omer. 20 days of the Omer. It's 2 weeks and 6 days. So what? So what? What are you trying to accomplish by saying it's 2 weeks and 6 days? You counted it. You did it. What do you have? Buy a calendar. We don't have an obligation to count the days from Hanukkah till from Purim till Hanukkah, but all of a sudden now we're counting all these days. What does it mean? So there's basically 3 mitzvahs that follow each other in this time of the year. The first mitzvah is, what's counting Omer even mean? Right after Pesach, the night after Passover, after the first night of Passover in Israel, the time of the temple, the mitzvah was to harvest the first husks of barley and to offer Hashem a carbon, a sacrifice from the barley. And the measurement that was used was called an omer. That was the amount of barley that had to be offered to Hashem. That was mitzvah number 1. Mitzvah number 2 is, for the next 49 days, count the days that have passed since you brought that sacrifice. Then mitzvah number 3, you come to the holiday of Shavuos, then there's another mitzvah to offer God 2 loaves of shtei halachem, the 2 breads that were offered from wheat. Those are the 3 mitzvahs. And the question is, what are we doing? Why are we counting? What does this even mean? So everybody knows the famous answer of the chinuch. What's the famous answer? What are we counting for? No? Get the Torah. Sefer HaChinuch says, we're counting the Jewish people when they left Egypt, they were waiting the days to get the Torah. So too, we are so excited about getting the Torah. We can't wait. We're waiting the days. When will we finally get the Torah? What's the problem with that answer? Oh, very good. We should count backwards. We should count 49, 48, 47, count down until we finally get the 0. Instead, if we count the days to get the Torah, we should count how many days are there left to get the Torah. There's 48 days left to get the Torah. Why are we counting upwards? Yes?
But we know the 50 days rules. So when we get to 50, then we know we reached it.
We should count backwards. We should be waiting for it. We should be.
Get to 0.
No, because each time you're reaching a higher level.
When a chas and kala, on the pshat level, you're counting days. You can't wait till the day you get the Torah. So if that's what you're doing, so how come you? I know when I used to sell these watches in the alley in the downtown when I was a yeshiva student here in Los Angeles in high school. I used to have to get a new watch every week because every week they broke. Why they break? Because every week there's these $2 watches, and I was always like press it throughout the day. How many hours are there left of class? How many days are left of school? As I count the days, finally you can. Not sound familiar, Zev? Okay, you've been there. Anyways, so
by the way, when you're in the army,
you count the days left to your draft. Yes,
Yeah.
you count the days left till you finish your service in the army. A chas and kala counting days left to their wedding. So how come over here the Torah says count the days backwards? Count the days from what has happened already. How many days has passed since Omer? We should be counting forward. How many days are there left till we get the Torah? So the Sefer HaChinuch gives us the Sunday morning answer. The Sunday morning answer is like this. Everyone tries to do things throughout the week. I know everyone's busy. You can't do anything during the week. You're busy. When can you do something? On Sunday morning. Nobody ever does anything on Sunday morning. You know why? Because if you go to your office on Sunday morning, this is what's going to happen. You walk in the office Sunday morning, you're like, I have a whole day. I have a whole day to do whatever I want to accomplish. What happens then? You do nothing because you have the whole day. So the Sefer HaChinuch, a day is off from work. You have another day, it's bank holiday. You're not going to work. What happens on a bank holiday? Nothing. Why? You're waiting on the bank holiday. That's when I'm going to accomplish what I need to accomplish. No one does anything on bank holidays. Why? Because you look at the day, I have a whole day. If you only have like 15 minutes, 5 minutes, you squeeze stuff in. But you have a whole day, you don't do anything. So similarly, Sefer HaChinuch says, if we would count the days, 49, 48, 47, we will look at day 1 of the counting the Omer, like, wow, we have 50 days. We have 50 days to prepare to get the Torah. We got time. So therefore, we don't count 50 down, because it would mess up our perception of what we need to do to get the Torah. We would think like, we have time. So that's why we count backwards, 1, 2, 3. All right. But this doesn't really fully satisfy us, because the holiday of Shavuos is unique among all other holidays in the date of the holiday. It's dateless. Every other holiday has a date when that holiday is. Pesach is the 15th day of Nisan, Yom Kippur is the 10th day of Tishrei, Purim is the 14th day of Adar. What day is Shavuos? 50 days from Pesach. What day is 50 days from Pesach? What day of the month is it?
no, Sivan.
6th day of Sivan. But is it the 6th day of Sivan? Nowadays it's the 6th day of Sivan. It's always the same day. But the time of the Bais Hamikdash, time of the temple, when the date of the new month was established by witnesses, sometimes you would have 29 days in a month, sometimes you would have 30 days in a month. So if the month of Nisan has 29 days, and the month of Iyar has 29 days, then the 50th day is going to be on the 7th day of Sivan. If the month of Nisan has 30 days, the month of Iyar has 30 days, then the 50th day is going to be on the 5th day of Sivan. If one is going to be 30 and one's going to be 29, which is the way we have our calendar always established to be, so the holiday of Shavuos is going to be on the 6th day of Sivan. It's not always the same. So instead of thinking like the Sefer Chinuch tells us that the whole point of counting the Omer is to get to Shavuos, it's really the opposite. The whole holiday of Shavuos is created by the Omer. Instead of looking at it that we're counting the days to wait till we finally get to Shavuos, the holiday of Shavuos is created by the Omer. So the question is, if that's true, why are we counting backwards instead of forwards? Why are we counting, associating always with the Omer? What does that mean? And what's the idea of looking at the Omer, and that's the focal point? That's what we're thinking about. That's a center of our lives through this whole time. We're thinking about that sacrifice. That's like our most. That's the center of our gravity during this whole time period. We're thinking about the Omer offering. Let's look at the Omer offering for a second. Omer offering is a very unique offering. What's unique about it? Barley, animal food. Usually the Torah tells us to offer things to God which are honorable, which are special. Here the Torah says bring animal food. Why? Why animal food? What's the meaning of animal food? And when we end up on Shavuos with human food, with flour made from wheat. We start with animal, we go to flour, we go to wheat. So the idea basically is that the Torah is telling us over here that the process of what's happening during the time of counting the Omer is to transform yourself from animal to human. That's the basic idea. But how does that work exactly? To understand how it works, let's look at the Torah's instruction about counting the Omer. What does the Torah say? When do you count the Omer? When's day one of counting the Omer? The day after Shabbos. That's in the Torah, day after Shabbos. But we don't really count the day after Shabbos, we count the day after Pesach. Why did the Torah say day after Shabbos? So, this is one of the famous arguments between the sages, the Talmud, and the Tzaddukim. There was a famous tzaddik we just mentioned in this past Shabbos, Antignes. Antignes taught his students a very chassidic idea. What was the idea? Don't be like servants who serve their master to get a reward. Be like servants who serve their master, don't think about reward. So Antignes had two students, Tzaddik and Baitos. They're listening to this rabbi and like, this guy has it all off. The whole thing we're doing Torah mitzvahs for is because we want to get a reward. We're sacrificing this world to get the next world. And now he's telling us there is no reward. Now really he wasn't saying that. He wasn't saying there's no reward, but that's the way they heard it. He was like, don't think about the reward. So they're hearing, there is no reward. And they got upset, and they started their own religion. Their own religion based upon the Torah, but a different religion where you only look at the literal meaning of the Torah, the way they understand the Torah, and don't go by the tradition. So one of their Sadducees, the Karaites, Sadducees come from Tzaddik, one of Antignes' students, and Baitusim. So these guys start their own religion, and one of their banners, one of their flag-waving arguments was this argument. It says clearly in the Torah 3 times, count the Omer the day after Shabbos, count the Omer the day after Shabbos. It says it 3 times in the Torah. Again and then, count the day after Shabbos, and you don't count the day after Shabbos. You count the day after Pesach. So why does the Torah say count the day after? So we know from tradition, from Moshe Levin, that's what it means. But if you look at it, it seems like these guys have an argument. On the surface, it looks like they have an argument. It would be a lot simpler also. Like this year, where Pesach does fall out, the first day of Pesach was Shabbos, it's a lot simpler. Day 1 of the Omer is Sunday, day 2 of the Omer is Monday, so it's more symmetrical. You have 7 weeks, and so it makes things a lot more symmetrical, a lot more, it's easier to remember what day is what. You don't have to always say what was last night. It's the Tuesday, so it's the 3rd week. You figure it out. So why is it the Torah says the day after Shabbos? What's the point of saying that? Why say it in a confusing way? What's a good horse? Want to buy a horse? What's a good horse? They say a horse who knows how to go out, get itself out of the mud. If it falls, no one gets out of the mud. Other guy says, nah, that's not a good horse. A good horse is one that doesn't fall into mud. What's a chacham? What does it mean a chacham? An intelligent person and a bright person. A bright person knows how to get out of a mess. An intelligent person doesn't get in the mess in the first place. So we know the Torah's inner meaning of the day after Shabbos is really the day after Yontif. But why does the Torah say day after Shabbos? We have proofs. We can prove it. And we have a tradition. But why say it that way? Why say it? It don't mean day after Shabbos. Say the day after. Say the day after Yontif. Why the day after Shabbos? So the Kuzri, he says it's an example. Torah chose a random example. Random example. Day after Shabbos. It could have said the day after. Could have said Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It happened to pick an example, but doesn't satisfy us. Why this? Why was this the example? If any day could be the example. Why was this the example? So the Ibn Ezra says the following. And Ibn Ezra says the reason why it says the day after Shabbos is because after Jewish people left Egypt and they built the tabernacle, so their very first Passover, where they were able to offer the Omer, was on Shabbos. Pesach fell out on Shabbos. It wasn't a random example. It was the very first Shabbos after leaving Egypt, and so therefore it wasn't a random example. It was the first Pesach. That's what the Kuzri said. That's what the Ibn Ezra says. But chassidus tells us something much deeper, much more meaningful, something more personal. Chassidus says like this: you know what we're trying to do over here during the time of Sir Seimer? What are we trying to do during Sir Seimer? What do we want to accomplish over here? What are we trying to get to? Trying to break down the Shemamis. Trying to change our animal, going from animal to human. In order to go from animal to human, the Torah says you have to know something about yourself. You have to know that you are beyond nature. Your point of counting is from the day after Shabbos. There is Shabbos. Shabbos is the order of the week. Shabbos is natural order. But the reason why you're able to make this change in yourself is because Hashem is giving you something which is beyond Shabbos, beyond nature, that's who you are. Before we get to chassidus, just want to share with you an explanation of the Alshich. The Alshich says something amazing. The Alshich says like this. There was a famous tzaddik, I told the story to my son. My son's like, I heard the story 7 times with 7 different rabbis. So I don't really know who the story happened with. My most recent version was with the Tzanzer Rebbe, but I don't know. Either way, it's a good story. The story is like this. There was a Jew who was very generous, and he helped a lot of people. And his Rebbe saw how kind he was and how generous he was, and he couldn't do much because he didn't have too much. So the Rebbe gives him a bracha, and he becomes tremendously, fabulously wealthy, and all of a sudden he's able to help so many more people. Okay? But because now all of a sudden time is money, there's no time anymore for everyone he was helping before. So instead of helping people himself, he had his gabbai, he had a secretary giving out the checks. And he would be making money, he's on the internet all day, making, buying, selling, whatever. So one day, he is up on the 3rd floor and the Rebbe comes to see him. The Rebbe realized, I ruined this guy. I gave him a bracha, I messed him up. So the Rebbe calls him and he calls him out, and he comes down, and oh Rebbe, all my bracha is because of you, thank you for coming. The Rebbe says, come here, look outside. Look outside, what do you see? I see that's the old widow, and she's carrying her groceries. Okay, what's that? And he looks, that's this guy, that's that guy. Okay, great. Then he points to the mirror. What do you see over there? Over there, I see myself. So the Rebbe asks, this is glass and that's glass. How come this glass you see yourself, and that glass you can see others? And the Rebbe said because this glass doesn't have any silver. This glass has silver. The silver in the glass, that's what makes it opaque. That's why you can't see through it. I don't know if that's how our mirrors were made, but that's how that mirror was made. So the point is, if you have too much silver, so it can blind you from seeing other people. Similarly, when a Jew is planting seeds, the storyteller version, right? You can see others, right? When you're planting seeds, you don't need to be reminded that other people, be sensitive to other people. Because when you're planting seeds, you need the Eibishter, and you feel the Eibishter. Because you're planting the seeds, you have no idea what's going to happen. You know if these seeds are going to grow, if it's going to rain, not going to rain. But when you start harvesting, that's when the danger is. That's when it's possible and probable that all of a sudden you're just going to feel like, okay, I got it. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you next year. So therefore the Torah says, day one of the harvest, bring a sacrifice to God. Show appreciation to Hashem. Day one of the harvest, say thank you. That will have a domino effect. That throughout the harvest, as you're harvesting all these things, you'll have that paradigm. It's not from me, it's from Hashem. It's not from me, it's from Hashem. That initial sacrifice, you're taking the very first barley that has ripened, and bring the very first thing to Hashem. That will be a game changer to the way you understand the whole meaning of what God has given you. Which, by the way, one of the most famous talks of the Rebbe, I won't go through right now, but the Baal Shem Tov taught how important it is to say Baruch Hashem and thank Hashem. And Baal Shem Tov said that you can imagine the kind of blessing you have by thanking God for the things you have. And by saying something specific, it hasn't happened yet. You haven't had yet the thing you're looking for. But thank God, the shidduch thing is working out. Thank God the health is working out. Thank God the parnasa is working out. You bring bracha down into your parnasa, into your health, into whatever's going on. Okay, so that's what the Alshich says. And the Alshich says something amazing. That's why that's why it's barley, because and Shavuos is wheat, because barley ripens before the wheat. Therefore, you thank Hashem for the barley as soon as the barley ripens. You thank Hashem for the wheat when the wheat ripens. That's what the Alshich says. So, and what he's saying is something that we can all relate to. There's a famous parable about this king. This king was traveling, and he went into the forest, as all kings do when they in the parables of kings. The king went into the forest, and the king meets a shepherd boy, and the shepherd boy is very intelligent and he's very handsome. The king talks to him, he's very impressed with him. The king says, "Mr. Shepherd boy, what are you wasting your time over here in the forest? Come with me back to the palace, be my top advisor." He becomes the top advisor of the king and the treasurer for the king. As he is the treasurer for the king, all the other ministers get jealous, and they accuse and they realize this guy must be a thief, because every treasurer is a thief, because that's why people want the job. But they can't figure out when he steals. They're trying to catch him in his stealing, so that way someone else can get the job. But he's too good. But there's one thing they find in him that they realize this is where he's doing it. This is where he's stealing. On the way home, he comes home late every night, 11 o'clock at night. But before he walks into his house, he goes into this room in the end of his estate, and he spends a few minutes in that room, and then he goes into his house. That must be where he has all the goods. So the other advisors of the king tell the king, "Your Majesty, we figured out he's a thief." They're sure this must be what he's doing there. Anyways, the king says, "I don't believe it. He tells the guy, "And I know this is not what you're doing. Well, tell me what you're doing in that room." "I can't tell you, Your Majesty." "You can't tell me?" King starts wondering. "Tonight we're coming there. I know you didn't steal, but we're going there tonight." Anyways, he comes to the guy. He comes with his whole entourage. They go into that room. What's in the room? In the room there is the shepherd's staff and a shepherd's satchel. Is every day, Your Majesty, I know that I'm in danger of forgetting who I am. So what do I do every day? I put on the shepherd's satchel, I hold the shepherd's staff, so I shouldn't forget who I am, where I came from. I should know that everything comes to the king. This is a similar idea to also how we begin the Seder. We begin the Seder by saying, this is the bread of affliction. Anyone who wants to come should come and eat. Very, very wise words. Who's going to come? The door is closed. No one can hear you. Everyone who wants to come can come and eat. Yeah, why'd you do that in shul when there are people actually? So what's the idea? One idea is like this: we're saying this to ourselves. We have all the Pesach finery, and we're sitting like kings. We have to remember where we came from. This is it's all a gift from Hashem, and that helps those who are by our table to feel comfortable. They're our guests this year. They feel they don't have their own place. They're our guests. So we want them to feel comfortable. We tell them, listen, we were also slaves. We're not here because we're smart. We're not here because we're brilliant. We're here because God decided to give us opportunity to be able to be the host. And next year, you'll be the host. That's how it works. It's got nothing to do with us. It's to do with Hashem. So by realizing where we came from, we're able to help other people who are sitting at my table already come and eat, come and drink. Now it's like this. Next year will be different. That's the Alshich. But let's get deeper. Again, chassidus says the message over here is during this time is we have a tremendous power for change. Rabbi Goldstein said a line to President Trump, which was very powerful. I don't think he could have prepared it because it's so good. He said, "My life has changed so I could make change. My life has changed so I can make change." there's something that Hashem gives us during this time. It's a change, so we can make change. Rabbi and Spiritual used to have this argument with the king's other advisors. Rabbi and Spiritual was a top advisor of the king, and he would have all these arguments with the advisors. And one of the arguments they had was whether nature and nurture, whether human nature is stronger than their intelligence, or what's stronger, your nature or your mind? Can your mind change your nature? And Rabbi and Spiritual maintained that your nature is stronger than your mind. But anyways, long story short, the priest claimed that he could change the nature of animals, and the king says, "Okay, you guys have a month to figure this out. And the month you'll present your arguments to me and show what you've accomplished." The priest presents these cats that are dressed up, ready to serve the king, and they look like human beings. They're dressed so nicely, and the Mason Eibishitz was called. Oh, the king wants you. Oh, I forgot the king. What am I supposed to tell the king? I'm supposed to prepare something. And he's so nervous. He grabs this snuff box before he leaves. What he didn't notice was that the snuff box when he closed the snuff box, a mouse went in the snuff box. So the king says to the priest, "Show me what you got." He shows him these cats and the way they're set up and the way they're dressed. Wow, it's impressive. And they're holding things and they're balancing things. Incredible. What about you? I don't know, Your Majesty. He opens up the snuff box, the mouse runs out, and the cats run after the mouse. So all kinds of sophistication, but then there is your nature. What's the unique quality of a human being? What's the advantage of a human being over the animal? What do we have that animals don't have? No? Ronnie, what do we have? Speech. Okay, we have speech, we have intelligence. What about parrots? What about monkeys? They can also learn stuff. What's unique about a human being is we can control ourselves. I want to tell you a story. This story you've heard before, but I heard the details. Rabbi Moshe Levin, ein Gesund. He visited Professor Velvet Green. Professor Velvet Green writes his story himself with all the details. Amazing. From his perspective, what happened in the story. Moshe Levin came to Minnesota, so he was a new rabbi and still wet behind the ears, and he wanted to get some kind of recognition in the city that he's here, he wants to accomplish something, and everyone was always saying the name Velvet Green. Velvet Green worked for NASA. He's listed as one of these scientists that was involved in discovering whether or not there's life on other planets. So he wanted to speak to Velvet Green. Velvet Green, you couldn't get a hold of him. He was in some classified place, but he was very persistent. He managed to get a number to Velvet Green's office, a number that his own family didn't have. Hello, this is Rabbi Feller. I want to see you. Can I have an appointment with you? He just gave him an appointment. Okay, you want money? I don't want money. Okay, they had this appointment, and the whole meeting was a bad meeting. It started off with Velvet Green like, "Why are you wearing that black hat? It's archaic. You want to make a difference in Minnesota? Take off the hat. Not you keep your hat on." So this is not the way you make a change. You have to look different. Wear something like Zev has, maybe. That will work out. And everything that Rabbi Feller was saying, he was saying the opposite. Back and forth, everything he said the opposite. In the middle of this meeting, Dr. Green gets a phone call from someone. He picks up the phone, and Rabbi Feller gets up and davens mincha. Oh, he looks, it's almost sundown. He gets up and davens mincha. And Professor Green is like, never saw anybody daven in his office, and didn't know what mincha really was. But he figured it probably was davening, and the secretary walked in then. And the secretary said it took a while to recover. Like, what is this guy doing in his office? And he had worked so hard to get this meeting, and now he's davening mincha. He finishes davening, and Professor Green gives him over the head. He's angry at him. What is this guy doing? What are you here? You're praying in my office. You asked for a meeting, and now you went to. What are you doing? Anyways, the meeting is over. Professor Green goes home that night, and something started moving in his mind. He and his wife were part of this club I'm not sure what kind of club it was exactly, but they would bring speakers to this club to tell them about various things going on in the world and history. And the one speaker told them a few weeks before about the Spanish Inquisition, the Auto de Fe, and how there used to be Jews who would jump into the fire rather than give up their religion. And the professors and this speaker had said, this is something that used to happen, but today there's no one like that. So he told his wife, I met someone who's like that. I met somebody who's like that. He would jump in the fire. He would do it. It's not something in the past. There is something in him that would not let him give up his religion. He would rather die. There's something there, and that opened up a window for him to discover Yiddishkeit and Torah, and he brought thousands of people to chassidus and to Yiddishkeit. So the Torah is telling us to Kali the Omer the following. The Torah is telling us we can't fix everything at once, but the Torah is telling us that we start counting from after Shabbos. The Jew is not limited to nature, like Mr. Ronnie over here. He doesn't say, "Oh, I can't come to the shir after because I'm on my crutches." I'll go with my crutches. I'll make it. There's no such thing. Nothing can stop me. Right, Ronnie? Are you unstoppable? Unstoppable. So Hashem does all these miracles for us, takes us out of Egypt. What does Hashem do next? After He takes us out of Egypt, Hashem says, "Now it's your turn. Now you do a miracle. Now you make a change." There are a group of students. I'll conclude the story. There are a group of students. There's what's going on. I'm coming from Nissen. There's a group of students. No way. We're coming from the month of Nissen, month of no tachnon. We skipped that short little prayer over there the whole month. Next month is the month of Sivan, also great month. First 12 days no tachnon, and the month of Iyar, middle charabe. You have to say this as extra prayer. It's not a month of holidays, but that's what the whole thing is. Hashem said, "I did all these miracles for you. I took you out of Egypt. Now you do a miracle." There were a group of students that once visited the Rebbe, and they asked the Rebbe if the Rebbe could do miracles. And the Rebbe said, not everyone here could do a miracle. The miracle is to go beyond your nature. And everyone that Rebbe said here in this room is going to do a miracle. Everyone here is going to make a decision to do something more tomorrow than they're doing today. In other words, what the Rebbe is saying is that, yes, it's true that our regular definition of miracle is something that's beyond nature, that the sea splits, but you decide to do something that's beyond your nature is also something miraculous. And what's powerful over here is the Torah says, "Usfartim lachem," you should count. You should beautify yourself. It's not Hashem doing it. It's not the month of this and the month of miracles. It's not the month of the giving the Torah. The whole point of Sfiras HaOmer is Hashem says, I've done the miracles for you already. Now I want you to do a miracle. That's what the theme of this time we're in now is. We're now empowered by Hashem to look at our lives and look at the things that we're not proud of, or things that we're doing good but we could do better, and say, where do I want to go? Where do I want to change? And Hashem gives each of us a special power at this time to make that change, make a lasting change. There's something in the air at this time, Sfiras HaOmer, to decide something's different, something's going to click, and okay, there's a lot of words we say, Netzach Teferish Netzach, but everyone knows themselves. There's something you want to work on. So now is the time that we can do it. Hashem tells us to choose something, your own by yourself, on your own, and make a miracle. Any questions, comments, criticism, tomato, cucumbers, shkoyachs.
Thank you.